A pregnant woman is brutally attacked by her husband and mother-in-law, unaware that she secretly owns the hospital empire that will ultimately destroy them. The room smelled of bleach and copper, the scent of our life together twisted into something horrifying. I froze as his hands gripped my arms, firm and unyielding, holding me against the cold kitchen counter. I could feel the tension in his muscles. The same man who once whispered promises of protection, now a stranger in my skin. How could love turn into this? From the corner of my eye, I saw her, the woman who had once smiled at my presence, the mother of the man I trusted, lifting the kettle with a strange, casual precision. The metal glinted under the kitchen lights, steam curling like smoke from a fire I hadn't yet seen. My stomach tightened in fear, and instinct screamed for me to move, but I was trapped, powerless, and horrified. The first drop of water hit, and the sharp heat shocked through my skin, a searing pain that stole my breath. I screamed, a sound so raw it seemed to echo against the walls of the house, bouncing back at me like accusation. He didn't move. He didn't stop her. He just held me there, staring as if this moment were nothing more than an inconvenient interruption. My baby is inside me. I have to protect her. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the love I had felt with the betrayal I was living. Each second stretched endlessly, the sound of my own terror mingling with their laughter. A sound colder than winter, sharper than any knife. How could someone look at another human being in pain and find amusement? I felt the second splash, hotter, heavier, and I cried out again. The kettle trembled in her hands as though it carried centuries of cruelty and entitlement. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat screaming a question I dared not speak. Why are they doing this? The room spun around me, a kaleidoscope of fear, fire, and disbelief. My arms burned where he held them. My belly burned where she poured. Everything I knew, everything I trusted, had shattered in an instant. I wanted to fight back, to throw myself free, but his grip was like iron, unwavering, and her laughter only grew. I never imagined the people I loved could betray me like this, I thought, every fiber of my body trembling. The world had narrowed down to pain and survival, to the urgent, fragile life inside me, and the cruel, merciless world outside. I closed my eyes, trying to summon any shred of strength, imagining my baby safe in my arms, imagining the life we still deserved. My scream faded into a sob, ragged and raw, a testament to fear and resilience intertwined. Outside, the air carried on as normal, unaware of the violence within these walls, unaware of the nightmare unfolding. In that kitchen, in that unbearable moment, I realized that survival was not just about escaping the pain. They had underestimated the fire they had awakened within me. Even when the world turns against you, your strength is your own. The kettle tilted. Time slowed. Steam filled the air like a warning that came too late. I could see the water moving toward me, unstoppable, shimmering under the kitchen light. My body instinctively tried to twist away, but his grip tightened, locking my arms in place. There was no escape. No merci. Only the sound of boiling water and her steady hands. When the water touched my skin, the pain exploded instantly, sharp, blinding, unbearable. It was not just heat. It was fire. It felt as if the world itself had ignited against me. I screamed, my voice breaking under the shock, every nerve in my body reacting at once. My breath left me in a violent gasp as tears blurred my vision. The pain spread quickly, stealing my strength, forcing my knees to shake. But the pain was only part of it. Through the haze of agony, I saw him, my husband, standing close enough to stop it, close enough to protect me. His eyes were open, fixed on the scene. He did nothing, not a single movement, not a single word. He watched. How could the man who once kissed my forehead and promised to protect our child stand there and do nothing? This cannot be real. This cannot be happening to me. The thought repeated inside my mind as if my heart refused to accept the truth. My baby kicked inside me, a small movement that felt like hope fighting back against the pain. I tried to focus on that tiny life, holding onto it as my reason to stay conscious. The water kept coming in slow, deliberate pours. Each drop felt like punishment. Each second felt intentional. Her expression did not change. No regret, no fear, only satisfaction. The sound of her laughter cut through my screams, turning my suffering into something they seemed to enjoy. I looked at him again, searching his face for the man I married. I wanted to believe he would step forward at any moment, pull me free, shout for it to stop. But he did not. His silence was louder than the screams. His inaction was heavier than the pain. In that moment, I understood something devastating. This was not an accident. This was allowed. My strength began to fade, replaced by a strange mixture of shock and disbelief. The world felt distant, like I was watching my own life from far away. The kitchen walls, the lights, their faces, all of it blurred together. Yet the betrayal was clear, sharper than the burns on my skin. I realized then that physical pain heals, but betrayal leaves deeper scars. The person who should have stood between me and danger had chosen to stand beside it. And that choice changed everything. The sound of sirens cut through the night like a lifeline. Distant at first, then closer, growing louder with every second. My vision blurred as I lay on the kitchen floor, my body shaking from shock and pain. Voices surrounded me, urgent, steady, professional. Someone was calling my name. Someone was asking if I could hear them. Strong hands carefully lifted me onto a stretcher. The movement sent waves of pain across my skin, but I focused on staying awake. I needed to stay awake. My baby needed me to stay awake. Please let my daughter be okay. The thought repeated in my mind, fragile but determined. I could feel my heartbeat racing, irregular and frightened, as the paramedics quickly checked my pulse and spoke in calm, practiced tones. Oxygen was placed over my face. Cool air filled my lungs. A small comfort in a body that felt like it was burning from within. The ambulance doors closed with a heavy thud, sealing out the world I had just left behind. The sirens began again, flashing lights reflecting against the windows as we sped down the street. The city outside continued as if nothing had happened, unaware of the battle unfolding inside that vehicle. A paramedic leaned closer, speaking gently, telling me that help was near. I tried to nod, though even that small movement felt exhausting. My hands trembled as they secured 4 lines, fluids entering my body to stabilize me. Every second mattered. Every action was precise and urgent. Was this really how my night was supposed to end? The pain was still there, but now it was mixed with fear. Not only for myself, but for the tiny life inside me. I could hear them discussing emergency procedures, their voices focused on saving 2 lives at once. The words felt heavy, yet hopeful. Surgery, specialists, immediate care. As we arrived at the hospital, bright lights rushed toward me. Doors opened automatically, and the stretcher rolled quickly through hallways filled with motion. Nurses and doctors gathered around, their faces serious but determined. They spoke in quick instructions, preparing equipment, preparing rooms, preparing for a fight against time. One doctor leaned near my ear and assured me they would do everything possible. I wanted to believe them. I had to believe them. My body felt weak, but my will remained strong. I imagined holding my baby in my arms one day, safe and breathing, and that image gave me just enough strength to stay conscious. Inside those hospital walls, the focus shifted, from pain to protection, from chaos to control, from fear to action. And while I lay there waiting for the next step, I realized that survival is not only about enduring the moment. It is about reaching the people trained to help you through it. The hospital lights were bright, steady, and almost peaceful compared to the chaos I had just survived. Machines beeped softly around me, monitoring my heart, my breathing, and the tiny heartbeat of my daughter. Nurses moved with calm precision, cleaning wounds, adjusting 4 lines, speaking in quiet, reassuring tones. In this place, everything followed protocol. Everything had order. And yet, beneath the pain and bandages, something powerful was about to be revealed. Very few people in that room knew who I truly was. To them, I was just another emergency patient, a woman who needed urgent care. They did not know that the building around us was part of something much larger. They did not know that the system working to save my life was connected to decisions I had made years ago. I had spent my life studying medicine, but my real focus had shifted to leadership, finance, and structure. I had built and acquired hospitals across the region, strengthening struggling facilities, improving resources, and creating sustainable operations. Each institution carried responsibility, employees, and patients whose lives depended on stability. And that stability depended on me. All this time, they thought I was powerless. The thought felt heavy, not with pride, but with quiet realization. I had hidden my position carefully, choosing simplicity over attention. No expensive cars, no public announcements, no visible signs of wealth. I believed humility would protect me. I believed love should be given freely, without status attached. But now, lying in a hospital bed, I understood something deeper. My strength had never been visible, but it had always existed. The buildings, the staff, the equipment, the emergency systems, these were not random. They were part of a network I had built to ensure care reached people when they needed it most. Did they think I was just another patient who would quietly recover and move on? The irony settled slowly in my mind. The very hospital that had rushed me into surgery was part of the empire I controlled. The surgeons who fought to save my daughter were trained under systems I had approved. The funding that kept the lights on, the payroll that paid the staff, the resources that stocked the operating rooms, these were supported by decisions tied to my leadership. Yet power, I had learned, is not about loud declarations. It is about preparation. It is about responsibility. It is about building something strong enough to stand even when you are not in the room. As I rested, listening to the steady rhythm of machines, I realized that while they had tried to strip away my dignity, they had no idea the foundation beneath me was unshakable. The world may have seen a victim that night, but behind the scenes stood a woman who understood systems, structure, and strategy. And sometimes the quietest woman in the room is the one holding the key to everything. The room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of medical machines. My body was wrapped in gauze, my skin still healing, my daughter resting safely in the nursery nearby under careful observation. Pain remained, but now it was controlled, managed by medicine, monitored by professionals. For the first time since the attack, I could breathe without fear of immediate danger. But healing my body was not enough. Justice had not yet begun. I reached for my phone with slow, careful movement. My hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the weight of what I was about to do. I scrolled to the name that meant safety in moments like this, my best friend and attorney. She had stood beside me through business negotiations, legal strategies, and difficult decisions. She knew how I worked. She knew I did not speak without purpose. When she answered, I did not cry. I did not shout. My voice was calm, steady, controlled. 6 words left my lips, clear and deliberate. Burn it all down. Now. There was silence on the other end for only a second. That silence carried understanding. She did not ask questions. She did not hesitate. She immediately began activating the emergency legal protocols we had designed years ago for worst-case scenarios. Evidence preservation teams were notified. Security footage was secured. Medical reports were documented. Witness statements were requested. Within minutes, the situation moved from private trauma to formal investigation. This is the moment everything changes. The thought settled firmly in my mind. Not because of anger, but because of accountability. I had built systems not only to run hospitals, but to protect them from corruption, abuse, and unlawful harm. And now those systems were being activated in defense of myself and my child. Have you ever felt the exact second when power shifts back into your hands? Legal teams contacted authorities. Warrants were prepared based on preliminary evidence. Emergency protective orders were drafted. The hospital's internal security protocols ensured that no one could tamper with records or interfere with documentation. Everything moved swiftly, efficiently, and lawfully. This was not revenge. It was procedure. It was structure. It was truth following the path I had designed long before that night. As I lay back against the pillows, listening to the soft hum of the room, I realized something important. The people who hurt me believed I was alone. They believed I was powerless. But they did not understand that I had built relationships rooted in loyalty, trust, and preparation. One phone call was enough because it activated years of careful planning and integrity. By the time the sun would rise, the law would already be in motion. Not through emotion, not through chaos, but through evidence and accountability. And in that quiet hospital room, I felt something I had not felt since the attack. Control returning to its rightful place. The house looked normal from the outside. Quiet street, closed curtains, lights still glowing inside like nothing had happened. But inside those walls, the truth was about to arrive in uniform. At exactly 9:47 that night, police vehicles stopped at the curb. No sirens now, just steady lights flashing against the windows. Officers stepped out calmly, holding warrants, their movements professional and focused. This was not anger. This was procedure. Inside, laughter had filled the room only hours before. My mother-in-law had been on the phone, speaking proudly about teaching me a lesson. She believed nothing would ever touch her. She believed her son would protect her. She believed the world belonged to them. When the doorbell rang, she answered with confidence, still wearing her bathrobe, still smiling. The smile faded slowly as she saw the officers standing there. One officer read the warrant clearly, explaining the charges. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to panic. This cannot be happening to me. The officers stepped inside respectfully but firmly. They informed her of her rights and began the arrest procedure. Handcuffs were placed on her wrists. The sound of the metal clicking echoed through the hallway, a sound that marked the end of denial. She began to protest loudly, claiming innocence, claiming misunderstanding, but the officers remained steady. Evidence had already been collected. Reports had been filed. The system was in motion. At the same moment, my husband tried to slip out through the back door. He moved quickly, grabbing his keys, believing he could disappear before consequences reached him. But two officers were positioned outside. They acted immediately, stopping him within seconds. He struggled briefly, but resistance only made the situation worse. Within moments, he was placed under arrest as well. Why do some people only understand responsibility when it is finally enforced? Neighbors watched silently from behind curtains as the vehicles waited outside. There were no dramatic scenes, only the quiet reality of accountability. The lies that had once sounded strong inside that house now felt small under the weight of truth. Evidence, documentation, and legal action had replaced fear. As both of them were escorted into separate patrol cars, the reality settled in. Their story was no longer controlling the narrative. Investigators had secured the kitchen evidence, medical records, witness statements, and video proof. Nothing had been left undone. The family that once believed they held power now faced the consequences of their actions. The house stood silent again, but it no longer felt powerful. It felt empty. And inside the hospital, far away from that street, justice was already moving forward. The courtroom was full, yet completely silent. Every seat was taken. Reporters waited outside. Cameras were not allowed inside, but the weight of attention still felt heavy in the air. The judge sat calmly at the bench, reviewing the case file. The defendants sat at the front, no longer in control, no longer confident. The evidence began with medical reports. Detailed, time-stamped, clear documentation of the burns, the emergency response, and the condition of both mother and child. The prosecutor spoke with steady clarity, explaining the sequence of events. There was no emotion in the facts, only truth. Then the video was played. The screen displayed the kitchen footage, captured by the housekeeper's hidden recording. The moment unfolded again in front of everyone. The restraint, the boiling kettle, the pouring water, the screams, the laughter, the silence from the husband. The courtroom did not react at first. No whispers, no movement, just stillness. So this is how it feels when truth stands on its own. The thought passed quietly through my mind as I sat in the witness seat, holding my daughter's case file in my hands. I did not need to speak loudly. The evidence spoke for me. The video continued. Every second added weight to the room. Jurors leaned forward. One covered her mouth. Another looked down, unable to maintain eye contact with the screen. The judge adjusted his glasses and watched carefully, ensuring every detail was recorded properly. When the video ended, the silence remained. It was not confusion. It was understanding. Why does truth become so powerful when it can no longer be denied? The defense attempted to argue. They tried to suggest misunderstanding, emotional conflict, or exaggeration, but the medical records matched the time-stamped footage. The emergency call logs matched the timeline. The security records from the hospital confirmed the rapid response. Every piece aligned. The prosecutor then presented additional evidence, witness statements, the restraining order filed immediately, and the documented chain of custody for all collected items. The system I had built to protect hospitals was now protecting justice. Everything had been handled correctly. As the arguments concluded, the courtroom felt different. The energy had shifted. The truth was no longer a story. It was documented reality. The judge announced that deliberation would proceed, but the evidence presented had already created a clear foundation. There was no drama in the room now, only accountability. When the session ended, the defendants were escorted out under supervision. The reporters outside would soon learn the details. The public would soon understand what had happened. But inside that courtroom, the most important moment had already occurred. The truth had spoken, and no one could silence it. The courtroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Every person present seemed to hold their breath as the judge prepared to speak. Families, reporters, and the jurors waited, knowing that the moment would mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. First, the mother-in-law. Her posture had shifted since the trial began. Confidence was gone. The arrogance that had once filled her voice now trembled with fear. The judge's words were firm, deliberate, and absolute. Life without parole. She could no longer manipulate, threaten, or laugh her way out of responsibility. Her face paled, the realization of a lifetime behind bars settling in. The husband's sentence followed. 25 years. He had once been the man who held me while my life and my baby's life were in danger. Now he was shackled by the law, forced to confront the consequences of his inaction, his betrayal, and the complicity that had nearly cost me everything. Could anyone really escape the weight of their choices? The thought passed through my mind as I sat quietly, my hands folded in my lap. I had felt pain, fear, and anger, but now I felt something deeper, closure. Not only for me, but for the truth itself. Justice had arrived, not through revenge, but through the system built to protect the innocent. The courtroom seemed to exhale collectively. Murmurs began to ripple, though the judge's gavel quickly restored order. The verdicts were not just words, they were the manifestation of accountability, the physical embodiment of consequences. Every action, every cruel decision, every moment of silence in the face of suffering had led here. I held my daughter in my arms, Grace, wrapped in a soft lavender blanket. She was asleep, unaware of the storm her very existence had sparked, unaware of the bravery her mother had summoned to ensure she lived. I kissed her forehead gently, feeling the warmth of life, the resilience of hope. The defendants were led away. Their world had crumbled piece by piece. And as the doors closed behind them, I realized that justice had been served not through vengeance, but through the undeniable truth. The court's decision had restored balance, and with it, a sense of safety I hadn't felt since that night in the kitchen. The media outside would report the sentences, the severity, the rarity of such clear-cut accountability. But inside that room, the most profound reality was simple. The people who had harmed me and my baby could no longer harm anyone else. Their power was gone. Their lies were exposed. Their control dismantled. And though the wounds would take time to heal, the moral of the story rang true in that moment. Justice, when pursued and supported by truth, has the strength to transform fear into freedom. Months had passed since the courtroom doors closed. The scars on my body were healing, fading slowly under careful treatment and time. The pain that once controlled my days had softened into memory. But the most important change was not on my skin. It was in my heart. That morning, I walked through the front doors of the hospital holding my daughter, Grace, close to my chest. The building looked the same, bright, steady, full of life. Yet this time I did not enter as a victim. I entered as a mother, as a leader, and as someone who had survived the darkest night of her life. The staff lined the hallway not because I demanded it, but because they chose to stand there. Some had witnessed my recovery. Some had followed the case. Others simply understood that strength deserves respect. As I walked forward, I felt something gentle replace the fear that once lived inside me. We made it through. The thought warmed my chest as Grace shifted slightly in my arms, her tiny fingers curling around mine. She was healthy, strong, alive. Every heartbeat of hers reminded me why I fought so hard that I entered my office on the upper floor and looked out at the city skyline. The view stretched wide and open, filled with possibility. The same hospitals I had built and strengthened now stood as proof that careful planning, ethical leadership, and resilience matter. The systems were functioning. The teams were stable. The mission continued. Have you ever felt the quiet power of rebuilding something that was almost destroyed? This time I moved differently. Not hiding, not shrinking, but also not shouting. True strength does not need noise. It needs consistency. I reviewed reports, approved improvements, and met with department leaders. The focus was clear: patient care, safety, and compassion. The experience had deepened my understanding of vulnerability, and I carried that awareness into every decision. Grace slept peacefully in a nearby bassinet as I worked. Occasionally, I would glance over and feel gratitude flood my heart. She would grow up knowing that her mother survived. She would know that courage is not the absence of fear, it is moving forward despite it. The hospital that once represented danger now represented healing in my life. The place where my daughter fought for survival became the place where our new chapter began. I had rebuilt not just my career, but my sense of identity. Pain had not defined me. Betrayal had not destroyed me. Instead, they had shaped me into someone stronger, more aware, and more determined to protect others. As I held my daughter closer and felt her steady breathing, I understood that life can change in an instant, but so can strength. And sometimes, the ending of one nightmare is simply the beginning of a brighter story. Moral line: even after the darkest night, a new beginning is always possible.